the fight for 15 just got a gigantic setback. So now within Biden's $1.9 trillion coronavirus package that they're still working on was a provision to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Now, the House version has this bill. The Senate version sought to include the bill using a process known as budget reconciliation. Apparently, that's not going to happen. So now the plan, of course, is to raise the minimum wage using budget reconciliation to $15 an hour. It's essentially doubling it from $7.25, and it would be a massive boon to millions of workers and the economy at large. Now, again, you have to pass it through budget reconciliation because you have an evenly split Senate. You have Republicans that have the filibuster that are not in favor of raising wages, and so the only ways to get past that is to do budget reconciliation in order to, or blow up the filibuster so that you have just a simple majority threshold. Now, of course, that had its own problems. Two members of the Senate, Democrats, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, they stood in the way of doing both of those things. Not only, are against raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, but also in blowing up the filibuster. And so they're not going to do either of those things. And so we're pretty much stuck. Okay, so you have Joe Manchin, West Virginia, and Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona to thank for you not getting a raise. Okay, for not increasing your wages. You can point at those two Democrats for stopping it, for literally standing in your way of getting higher wages. They would rather that the people in West Virginia, who, by the way, I referenced a study where the cost of living in West Virginia, where the minimum wage is somewhere around $8-9 an hour, actually the average family requires $14 an hour to actually live without having government assistance. So that's very important. So now Manchin and Sinema, well, they don't believe the people in their state should get fairly compensated for the work that they put in. They would rather people suffer in poverty than to do anything that might imperil corporate profits. So just an FYI. All right. So now there are Democrats, obviously, that don't agree with them. And they hoped that they would be able to use their power to be able to get these two to stop standing in the way of you getting a raise. And that, of course, brings me to the Senate Parliamentarian. Now, who the hell is that? What the hell is a Senate Parliamentarian, and why are they suddenly all over the news? Everybody's talking about the Senate Parliamentarian. That's the person who, blocked Biden and the Democrats from giving you a living wage. That's what you hear. That's what you read about in all the establishment, papers and things like that. New York Times. They're like, a Senate Parliamentarian said no, so I guess we can't really do it. I mean, this person is the ultimate authority. The buck stops with them. No, that's not actually true at all. The Senate Parliamentarian is basically an advisor, an unelected advisor, whose main job is to basically make a determination and interpret the Senate rules for reconciliation. And she said, well, you know what? I just think that this would have a not as much of an impact on the budget. So therefore, we can't reconcile it. We can't put a minimum wage increase into this package. I just don't feel like it's the right thing to do. Oh, okay. Well, again, this is somebody that nobody has heard of until like literally yesterday. Okay. And so she is concerned about process that no one else in the country it gives a shit about. Nobody cares about the process of reconciliation. What they care about is getting higher wages. All right. And so, unfortunately, the Democrats have decided, and mainly Joe Biden, and as I'm going to get to, Kamala Harris, also said, well, hey, look, the Senate Parliamentarian said no, so I guess my hands are tied. I can't really do anything. Sorry. Now, McDonough, this is the parliamentarian's name is Elizabeth McDonough. And she had told Senate offices on Thursday that the provision as written violated the strict budgetary rules that limit what can be included in a reconciliation package. And again, well, that's it. But, Senate Parliamentarian, this completely unelected advisor, whom, again, most people didn't even know existed, says we cannot make millions of people's lives better because of arbitrary budget rules that they essentially made up. That's what happened. They just made it up. I guess we'll bomb Syria instead. That's a better use of our money. I mean, there's never not an excuse to shovel tons of money at bombs and defense contractors. Jesus Christ. So now what this does is that this gives Manchin and Sinema political cover. They can say it wasn't us, it was the Parliamentarian. What are you going to do? And then it also gives Joe Biden political cover because, what if he didn't want to do the $15 minimum wage? Well, then that's a really good cover. That's would not fight it. But also, hey, guess what? It also gives Vice President Kamala Harris political cover because now she's not challenging it, which is interesting because there's a tweet. There's always a tweet. Here's what she said earlier. This was during 2016. 11/29/16. It's abysmal that the federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. You can't live off that. It's time for a $15 minimum. Now, here's what Jeff Stein from the Washington Post tweeted here. White House National Economic Council Director Brian Deans reiterates VP Harris will not overrule the Senate Parliamentarian. The vice president is not going to weigh in. So, I mean, and here's the thing. If you're one of the millions of people that would be helped by this and then see this not happen, I don't think you're really going to care about the reason that Biden denied and failed to, honor his promise to raise wages. You're not going to care why. You're not going to give a shit about these arbitrary rules. Okay, the only thing people will know and will see, and this is why it's so disastrous, is that they know that the Democrats made a promise to raise wages. It's incredibly popular, right? And that they failed. And that they essentially lied about this. And now they're going to help Republicans. Now they're going to vote for Republicans. This is what happens all the time. It is the same old song. Joe Biden is not going to do anything about this. Kamala Harris, as I showed you, is not going to do anything about this. There are still paths available. And here's the thing. But first, let me get to a statement from Jen Psaki. Quote, President Biden is disappointed in this outcome. He respects the parliamentarian's decision and the Senate's process. He will work with leaders in Congress to determine the best path forward. There is no path forward. Not if you're not willing to upset some norms. Again, the only two ways to go about this. One of them is to destroy the filibuster, okay? End the filibuster. Biden has already said, I'm not interested in doing that. Manchin has already said in Sinema, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do anything to upset the process. So guess what? That $15 minimum wage, that is not happening. It's just not going to happen. And people are going to remember this as an abysmal failure. An abysmal failure. Now, the other way that they can do this, right? They can just ignore the parliamentarian completely. As I just mentioned, Kamala Harris has the power to say, okay, I respect your opinion, but how about F off? I'm going to go forward without you. I'm going to go ahead and do this anyway. Again, advisor with no power. The majority in the Senate, which is the Democrats, could fire her. You know who fired their parliamentarian when they disagreed on a policy? Republicans. Back in 2001, Republicans were pushing giant tax cuts for the rich, all right, under George W. Bush, through the reconciliation package. Now, there was a parliamentarian at the time by the name of Robert Dove, right? So Robert Dove, he's like, I just don't agree with this. We're not going to be able to do it under these budget reconciliation rules. And Republicans, they said, oh, really? You're not going to do that? Okay, well, you're fired. Clean out your office. Get the hell out of here. We're going to go pass tax cuts for the rich. Why? Because we actually want to do this. This is something we really want to do. Whereas the Democrats are like, I got to respect process. What are you going to do? I respect the process more and the parliamentarians' words more than I do getting 34 million people a raise. That's what's going on here. All right, that's what's going on. And again, you don't even have to fire them. Kamala Harris can just say, VP Harris can say, as power of VP, I'm the head of the Senate. And as the head of the Senate, I want to honor my promises that I made during my election, during my campaign, during our campaign, and give you a minimum wage. It's more here from the New York Times. Top White House officials, Ron Klain, chief of staff, have said that Kamala Harris, in her role as president of the Senate, would not vote to overrule, and then, of course, doubled down as well. McDonough, the first woman to hold the post, has retained both the position and bipartisan respect under the leadership of both parties since she was named in 2012 by former Senator Harry Reid. So they respect her and the process so much that they are going to let that get in the way of passing and raising wages for regular people. And you wonder why people hate Washington. You wonder why people hate this, hate what's going on, don't respect any of our politicians because they don't do anything for us. They don't do anything for us, and they end up using your money to pay for the F-35, the jet that does not work. Trillions of dollars flushed down the toilet. Do you have a stimulus check yet? Do you have health care yet? No. But guess what? We get to bomb Syria. It's ridiculous. Now, there are politicians who get it. Okay? There's even Democratic aides that are talking to the New York Times. One of them had groused privately on Thursday night that Mr. Klain's comments in a televised interview on Wednesday, combined with Biden's public admission this month that he did not think the wage increase would survive, gave Ms. McDonough the permissive structure to essentially kill the proposal, according to the Democratic aide who described their thinking on the condition of anonymity. Other Democrats were more public. Here you have Progressive Ro Khanna. Here's Representative Ro Khanna saying in a tweet, I'm sorry, an unelected parliamentarian does not get to deprive 32 million Americans the raise they deserve. This is an advisory, not a ruling. VP Harris needs to disregard and rule $15 minimum wage in order. We were elected to deliver for the people. It's time we do our job. Here we go. We also have Ilhan Omar. Abolish the filibuster, replace the parliamentarian. What's a Democratic majority if we can't pass our priority bills? This is unacceptable. It's true. It is absolutely unacceptable. She continues by saying, Republicans go for their agenda and don't let anyone stand in their way as they fight for corporations over people. We have to fight hard for the American people and not hide behind a ruling from an unelected parliamentarian. It is time to lead. And then adds, progressives are often told to fall in line. It's time to tell moderates to fall in line. They are not the majority. Moderates. This is an incredibly popular proposal. A large majority of the American people say it is time to raise the wage. It is time. It has been past time to raise the wage, and we still haven't done it. We haven't had a minimum wage increase in 12 years. The minimum wage right now is worth less in buying power than a minimum wage back in the 1960s. There is no reason that we could not raise the wage, except for political reasons. And this is a political reason. This is the Democrats saying, we want to lose. We want to lose. And that's what's going to happen. Now, here's Representative Jayapal, one more. Quote, the White House and Senate leadership can and should still include the minimum wage increase in the bill. The ruling only makes it more clear than ever that the Senate must reform its archaic rules, including reforming the filibuster to allow populist and necessary policies like the $15 minimum wage to pass with a majority of the Senate. So as I said, this thing has me very, very concerned, very, very worried. Not only, of course, that millions of people 32 million people are not going to be able to have higher wages to which they can actually even attempt to survive on. And so it gets worse politically, right? So now I was afraid with Joe Biden getting into power. Again, I advocated for Joe Biden. I said we should vote for him over Donald Trump, obviously, to get Trump out of power. We were successful, great. But now, all right, I was afraid, though, with Biden, and this goes back to why I supported Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary and why I was advocating for him. I was afraid that if Joe Biden were to get into power and then refuse to actually do things, well, that would turn out to be bad. And it turns out that's exactly what's happened. I'm not saying that Biden's done nothing, okay? Biden undid some of Trump's agenda. Good, that's great. But that's bare minimum. That is bare minimum, okay? Raising the minimum wage, it's also kind of bare minimum because it should have been raised beforehand. And we have not been able to do so because the Democrats refuse to fight for it. They refuse to fight for it, okay? And my big fear is that their refusal to do something that is so popular and so simple to be able to do, or to, give $2,000 stimulus checks. So it got underhandedly put down to $1,400. They refuse to do, to cancel student loan debt, even though Biden has the authority to be able to do so, to cancel all of it, or even $50,000, which again would help millions and millions of people. All right. Or refusing to get the kids out of the cages, okay? I reported on that too. Stuff like that. Stuff they can do by either executive order or different parliamentary tricks to be able to get around these things. Or by, publicly shaming their more centrist members like Manchin and Sinema to fall in line and get with the majority of the Democrats in Congress. That's setting up Democrats for a political disaster in 2022 and 2024. Because as I said before, nobody is going to care that an obscure advisor, the Parliamentarian, didn't think it would be a good idea to keep the increase in a coronavirus stimulus bill. The only thing that they're going to realize is that, oh, look, nothing has changed. Joe Biden is in office and nothing has fundamentally changed for me. And they're going to blame Biden. They're going to blame the Democrats. And then they're going to end up either not voting or voting for Republicans, which is insane. Okay, it's insane. It's insane. It's insane. This is a great example of why Democrats fail at both politics and policy. Even though the vast majority of this country is progressive, we believe in these things. We want health care. We want higher wages. We want unions. We want regulations on corporations. We want the rich to pay their fair share in taxes. The country wants that. Those are overwhelmingly popular positions. And yet, for some reason, the Democrats suck so goddamn bad that they can't even do it. They can't do any of this stuff, even though they have the power and the authority to do it. Oh, I'm too worried about process. Oh, I'm too worried about civility. What is Fox News going to think? What are Republicans going to think? I don't want Mitch McConnell to avoid going to lunch with me later. He's going to call me a name. Who the fuck cares? Nobody cares. Do your goddamn jobs. Just do your job and help the American people like you're supposed to. If they don't get their heads out of their asses, then the midterms are going to absolutely be a bloodbath. It's going to be a bloodbath. And the American people are going to continue to suffer. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.